The next chapter with Prim Siripipat is a production of iHeartRadio. Hey everybody, it's Prim. Welcome to the next chapter presented by Baron Davis and Slick Studios. This week's guest is Greg Oden. I'm so excited to finally be sharing this interview, which we've been sitting on for 3 years. Now, I'm sure many of you know who he is, but in case you need a little refresher, Greg was a McDonald's All-American and 2-time Gatorade National Player of the Year in high school. He went on to play at Ohio State, and in his 1 year with the Buckeyes, they almost won an NCAA title, but fell short to the Florida Gators that year. He decided to bounce after a year because he knew there was a huge opportunity waiting for him at the next level. Greg was selected with the #1 overall pick in the 2007 NBA draft by the Portland Trail Blazers. He was the first and remains the only basketball player in Ohio State history to go #1 overall. Now, when you look at the earlier parts of Greg's career, there were certainly a lot of accomplishments and a lot of accolades. And considering he was 6'5" by the time he was in 6th grade, I suppose it's no surprise that he flourished in basketball. But what came after draft night in 2007 was definitely a different trajectory. It was filled with some highs, but definitely a lot of lows, including a lot of injuries, a lot of disappointment, and a lot of off-court issues as well, including substance abuse, which we'll uncover in this interview. It's almost as if you could split his athletic career into 2 parts, before and after the NBA draft. And that's how we split up this interview, especially because it went for over 2 hours. So in this first episode, we talk about what Greg has been up to recently and how his journey to discovering who he is as a person and also outside of basketball is still this ongoing process. We also explore the dynamics of his childhood and how he got into basketball. I think what's most important to pay attention to are the different forces that pushed him or even nudged him towards basketball, including his parents' divorce, which prompted him, his brother, and also his mom to move from New York to Indiana, aka Larry Birdland and basketball country. Sport really gave him a sense of community, especially as he was navigating this significant transition in his life. And you also hear him talk about how uncomfortable he was in his own skin because he was so tall. It's like basketball gave him a reason to be tall. Now, just for context, Greg and I had actually met a few months prior while we were both speaking on a sports panel at Ohio State about, ironically, retirement and transitioning from sport. And after hearing more about everything he's been through, things that he hasn't talked about publicly, I thought, I have to have him on the show. So without further ado, here's Greg Oden, part 1. Hi, Greg. How are you?
I am great. Thank you for having me.
I was expecting a warmer welcome, but it snowed last night. What is up? This is, at the time of this taping, it's in the middle of November, early November actually, and it snowed and it kind of wreaked a little havoc everywhere.
Yes, because I was wearing shorts earlier in the day yesterday. So, yeah, a little colder today.
But you and I were texting back and forth, and I was like, hey, I want to make it as comfortable and fun as possible for you. And so I was like, hey, how about some donuts?
Yes.
So I went across the street, got some Buckeye donuts. Apparently that's like the big thing here at Ohio State.
Well, first off, first class service. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I appreciate that. You didn't have to. And
I wanted to.
This is probably my second time actually having Buckeye donuts, and I've still never been in there.
Are you serious? It's literally right across the street.
Yeah, but there's literally no parking.
That's true. Yeah. But we also mentioned that you're a Krispy Kreme guy.
I am. Just original glaze and raspberry filled glaze. I am good.
You're a simple guy. Yeah, because I didn't know your taste. So I'm kind of I like colorful stuff. So I got like the chocolate one with sprinkles. I got this crazy huge one. It was like the maple bacon, and there's two slices of bacon on there.
Are you going to eat that?
You know what? I may give it to Josh. We're going to meet up with Josh Perry, another Ohio State alum. He's a football guy. Like he looks like a dude that might like crush that maple bacon donut.
Yeah, but you know when those guys stop playing, they get skinny. You know, so he might not want all them.
Not all of them.
Yeah, you're right. But with football, I've noticed that a lot of football players, especially like the O-linemen, they don't need all those calories.
Yes.
And the defensive backs, they're not lifting like that, so they get a little bit skinnier. But
They
basketball players, we run so much that when we stop playing, it's just like the weight's coming.
I feel like there's no excuse because you guys are so tall. Like me sitting at 5'2", if I have a little bit, anything that's off my typical diet, it kind of shows. But you being really like tall and stretched out, I feel like you can stretch out any weight that comes on. You
can stretch it out, but that doesn't mean the weight's not there. Like I look lean, but I'm close to 300. You know.
But it's funny when you went for the donuts and you went for the simple glaze, you were not attracted to any of the colorful, kind of like big time donuts. Is that an indication of your personality at all?
I would like to say so, but it's more of an indication of just my taste buds. I'm not a big chocolate guy. Sprinkles, all that extra stuff. No, I just like the sweet, sugary, straight to the point. I don't need the extra stuff. So I guess that is kind of a little take on my personality.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about other aspects of your life, whether it's like fashion or clothing or how you live your life.
I'm too big to be out there, crazy colors. But I do like the fact that the pants nowadays are a little short because no pants fit me at all. So, the high water pants that's in style, I'm like, yeah, I can do that.
You like the high water situation?
I do, actually.
Really? That's funny. Well, it's so great to connect with you again. And we got a chance to meet one another and work with one another earlier this year at an OSU, your alma mater. They were having a what they call a sports and society panel. And it talked about what happens to athletes when sport is no longer a part of their life. And it was like this all-day affair. They had multiple panels. And ours was the last one. It was you, myself, Joshua Perry, former Ohio State football player, also played in the NFL. Monica, I believe her last name was Vasquez.
Yes.
She was a synchronized swimmer. That was really cool to hear her experience. And then Dr. Steve Grafe.
Yes.
Who also, he played football, but is a sports psychologist now. And I was the only non-Buckeye. I didn't realize that until I got there. Weird. That was awkward. You thought that was weird?
But you are a Blue Devil. Wait, right?
Yeah.
You are a Blue Devil. And one thing I have learned through my travels is Duke alums get in any door.
Really?
Yes, they do.
Why do you say that?
You guys are everywhere. I've played with Josh Rick Roberts and Shavlik Randolph.
Yeah.
And between those two, I can possibly meet anybody I want to in life.
That is comical. I do remember.
Oh, and Shane Battier, so yes.
Shane, just Shane's Shane, yeah. That guy does not mess around. He's just a stand-up guy.
He really is.
Yeah. But that panel was so important. I had never seen a university or any athletic department hold something like that. And it was essential. I haven't, at least not yet. I'm sure there's somebody doing that, but it was really cool to see a school that's so big, especially in that athletic space, but taking the extra effort to prepare their student athletes for life afterwards.
I mean, it was a really good panel, and I think it was something that could benefit by the athletes actually being there to see something like that. I mean, it was a couple of students who were athletes in there, but I think, just the majority of athletes, if they had a chance to look at something like that, especially in college, because, you at that time you're going to be playing your sport for the rest of your life, and you don't think about, something can happen tomorrow or while I'm in school that, you have to prepare for that next chapter of life.
Mm-hmm. How, had you done anything like that before?
Before that, no.
Yeah.
Not talking about it, or that was my first time just being open, honest, and candid about just the struggles that I've been through with my transition away from playing basketball.
Really? So that was your really first moment taking the time to open up about everything, your basketball journey, your life journey?
Like, I've done interviews and spoke about some of my struggles, but that being on the panel and talking in front of people and actually, word for word going about the struggles and the connection of me transitioning to where my mind was at that time, that was the first time I got a chance to do that in front of people live.
You're amazing. I mean, you talked very candidly about everything that you had been through. And you're right. I've seen bits and pieces where people have done multiple stories on you. A lot of it's on your basketball journey, and some of it might be related to your personal stuff. But I don't think I've seen a video interview or anything, at least not yet, of you talking about this stuff. Do you get media requests frequently, often, or how often do people reach out?
I'm getting a lot more emails nowadays about a couple of podcasts, and just trying to be smart about which ones I'm doing, and just not trying to do everything in that jumps, because I want some time to myself, time with the family,
Yeah.
But I am happy, and I jumped at this chance to do your podcast. So.
Thank you, Greg. Why? I guess there's been a few athletes that I've gotten a chance to sit down with. I mean, there's been about 20 of them so far. And certain athletes I know are more private and more introverted. And I am honored and flattered that anybody would want to take the time to open up, because it's just not an easy thing. It's not an easy thing for me either. But I'm at a point in my life where I realize who I am, and I've healed from my pains, and I can talk about them now. But, for those players that I know that are more private, and they have the courage to come down here and sit with me, I do ask the question, like, why? Like, what allowed you to come here today to, talk about whatever we're going to talk about today?
Well, first, it was you, because we did have a conversation back when we did the panel. And, I told you that I would, because we had a similar experience with us leaving our sport. But also, I've lived it. Like, I guess I was kind of looked at as more of a private guy as well when I was playing, but that's because, you wanted to ask me just about basketball. I was never really asked about my personal life or how I felt about certain situations. And when you think about that, when you're playing the sport, a lot of people don't really look into you at that time. They're always worried about what you're doing in your sport right now. They don't really worry about the person you are or kind of how you feel in certain situations in life. And right now, like, I lived it. A lot of this stuff, it happened in the past. It's not like it's going to change. There's nothing I can say that's going to make my experience any different. So I just kind of own it and own the path that I've taken to get right here now. So that's why I'm so open and candid about, the experiences I went through. If I can help somebody make a better decision, or if I just inspire somebody to be better in one part of their lives, I would definitely tell my story and my struggles that I've been through.
That's awesome that you own it. And not everybody, depending on when you ask somebody, not everybody, including myself, is able to own their story. It takes a lot of reflection. It takes a lot of healing as well. And it sounds like it would make sense in the best place that you've ever been, in your life? Would that be a fair question? Or
I mean, I'm
statement?
good. I'm happy. I'm graduated. I got a beautiful wife.
Congratulations.
Thank
you just graduated this year, right?
Yes, in May. I would love to say it was a unique thing. I guess it was for me. But then it was the biggest graduating class in the history of Ohio State. So
no way.
Yeah, I was part of that. Me and the
Maybe
most people
you were
to
that
graduate.
one. It was like, how big was your class?
Do
you remember?
I want to say it was 19,000. That's the number.
So it was like 19,001 because of you.
Yeah, we're going to say that. Yeah. But I mean, it was a great experience. Like I talk about when I finally went down the tunnel, it was like right when we got to the end, I started doing my little shake. And I sprinted like 3 steps and was like, I felt like I was on the football team, But it was good.
That's awesome. What a cool experience. Congratulations. And you majored in something in sports, right?
Sport industry, yes.
Very cool.
Bachelor of Education in sport industry.
That's very cool. Yeah, I mean, so, in the process of doing these interviews, we're going to launch the show in a couple of months. But I think that the one message I want to send, especially with your story in mind, is I know I might get the question of what made your interviews different? And I think the one thing that I would say to them is reporters and journalists, and this is not to say anything, this is not like an indictment or anything good or bad about what anybody is doing, because everybody has their beat, as you know. They'll come in with a certain angle. And as people in sports, you have to talk about what's going on in the game or someone's performance. But I think the one thing that I would say to them is in order to get different answers, you have to talk. There's a person behind the frame, the shield, the image of the athlete. And that's important to me. And maybe my perspective is a little different because I've been through it, and I'm excited to learn more about your story, because I think we have, I mentioned to you before the interview that I've got all these notes, but it's only because your basketball career is so intricate and very complex. There's a lot of huge events going on, and it's hard to kind of grasp everything that went down. And for me, I become obsessed with timelines. So that way I'm able to it's like everyone's life is like a puzzle, right? But I'm going to present those timelines, but it's your platform to kind of fill in the gaps and color this color book,
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. I mean, it's your story, you know what I mean? And I want to make sure I ask different questions and questions that people have never asked before. And I think that will give people a better understanding of who you are as a basketball player and also a person,
Well, I appreciate that opportunity, and I hope it does. I'm wherever you want to start from, I guess. I'm
I'll
excited.
ask you who is, have you asked yourself the question, who is Greg Oden?
I've actually recently been working on that.
Yeah.
It's crazy because when I was in school, I felt like I halted a lot of my life, and that was a lot of my transition period. Because, for all I knew was playing basketball. And then when I finally retired after Miami and after I played a year in China, I was really lost and kind of had no idea where I wanted to go. And I say this again, thank Coach Stab Mata. He picked up that phone and he gave me a call, and me and him talked for a while. And that was a conversation I really needed to have because I had no direction at that time. It was a lot of alcohol abuse. It was a lot at the time smoking a lot of weed, and I just didn't really know what I was going to do next. And Coach Mata, I started coming to practices. Then I finally enrolled in summer school, and then I was a student manager with the team while taking full time. And I did that 3 years. And while I was doing that, I was kind of just get school done. I mean, I did, have a daughter and got married, but
that's a lot going on. That's not easy to go to school with a family and daughter. And
my wife was a saint for putting up, and I'm like, grown man, like, yeah, I got class. And she's like, wait, we got this stuff to do. We got this baby to take care of. And she's like, I got work. And I'm like, yeah, I got class. That was, I'm thankful to her for the strength that she had, to be there with me. But I'm a different type of dude. I'm a schedule, like, tell me what I need to do first, A, B, C. Give me that list, and I can go down the list and do it. But I'm always a guy, like, you got to do A before you move to B. So for me, it was like, get this school and then get this degree, and then, figure out what you're going to do outside of that. So now I kind of feel like I'm opening up my eyes to all these different opportunities to, do some motivational speaking, to help out in the community, to, be a mentor to some kids, and also be a better husband and father, and provide for my family as well, be more educated in stuff that, my finances, just things around my life and my affairs, that when you're playing and you're getting checks, you don't even think about it. You're like, I got a guy to handle that. But now I'm grown and I'm like, I need to understand what my finances are doing, I got people that I trust, but I feel like I need to be a little bit more involved in some of these things. And, there's possibly some things that I could have missed out on because I was just focused on school. Instead of being knowledgeable to be like, hold on, this is happening this year. I still got a lot more checks coming in right now. Maybe I should take advantage of that. And these are a lot of things that when we're in that moment, when we're getting checks, we don't think about or take advantage of in the time. So.
A lot of athletes, when sport is no longer a part of their life, the one common theme that does come up to the surface is that we lose that sense of structure because our days are so crammed from 5 a.m. all the way to 11 p.m., especially, you were only in college, for a year. But even when you go to the professional level, I mean, it's just like you get up at 5 a.m., you have breakfast, you have to warm up at 7 a.m., you have to be on the court by 8 and go from 8 to 10. And then you have film and lunch and then meetings and all that stuff. So when that wasn't a part of your life, did you miss it? And do you think that contributed to some of your struggles and finding some sort of system to go off of?
Yeah, I definitely want to say that because you just, you're so used to having that schedule that when you don't have, something to do, you're just kind of lost, And I mean, I don't know if anybody's ever smoked weed, but that's a perfect way to get lost in time.
Although I just kind of get paranoid from that. I don't really get lost and relax. I get paranoid from that stuff.
See, I was TV. I got lost in hours in movies. And I mean, that's how I just kind of dealt with the free time, And then the evening would come and I'd be like, okay, it's party time. And a lot of that as well is you're doing all this stuff and you're spending this type of money, but that money is not coming in that it was. That's another stress that's happening. When I look at it, it was a way to numb a lot of that free time. And I mean, like you said, it's when you don't have that schedule that, the wandering mind is going to find something to pick up that slack.
Yes, definitely. The mind is like a little puppy dog. It likes to chew on issues and problems and thoughts. And when you don't give it something to work on, it will find something to chew on.
And the easier things are the things that are probably not the best for you in the healthy standpoint. But it's easier to just go out and drink and to go out smoking, to not do anything to help your life. It's tough to get up when you don't know what's going on, to read a book, to better yourself, to find things to, put together in your time, to donate time or money to causes that mean something to you. It's hard to take the time to figure out what means something to you in your life because a lot of us just go through life and it's always our sport. But when do you actually look back and be like, hey, I actually like this? I want to donate or I want to put some time into some things that I actually like away from the sport. And that's a big thing for me that I had to realize. Like when I graduated, I was like, okay, I can get a job, but I want to get something that, you know, I enjoy doing. And then you look back and you're like, well, what the heck do I enjoy doing? You know, it's kind of tough to actually find that, you know, from an early age, if you don't have that thing away from your sport that you love doing or you just enjoy doing, it's tough to find that when the sport's taken away.
And I think the one thing that's like really critical about your story, and I want to highlight it so people understand just this concept of what they call in psychology the athlete identity. It basically happens when a person really identifies and internalizes sport as who they are and also what they do. And I think because of your background, I think basketball became like everything in your entire world. And I think it might be, I'll let you obviously delve into it, but I think some of it was intentional, but some of it was accidental. And I guess I'll explain it a little bit. But so you were born in Buffalo, right? Buffalo, New York.
Yes.
And what was your childhood like?
Me, my brother, mom and dad, bunch of cousins. Spent a lot of time at my auntie's and my grandmother's house with all my cousins. Yeah. My cousin Christopher was kind of like a brother to me. It was like once we were out of school and, you know, he was out of school, we were at his house. We was following him, me and my younger brother. You know, he was our everything. You know, he was our big cousin. Everything he did, we had to do.
It sounds like you came from a pretty big family.
Yeah, I mean, my mom had 3 sisters and 2 brothers.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. You know, 2 of them didn't have any kids, but they were the younger ones. But the other ones all had multiple kids, so I have a lot of cousins, and you know, we're a close family. So. And
then you ended up moving to Indiana at 9, right?
I want to say 3rd grade.
3rd grade. So yeah, that's around like 8, 9, I believe. And why did you guys end up moving?
My mom and dad actually got a divorce. So my mom got me and my brother, and we went to Terre Haute, Indiana. Yeah, it was eye-opening. We went from the inner city of Buffalo, New York to Terre Haute, Indiana, where I swear I didn't even see sidewalks in the suburbs. You know,
really?
Oh man, like coming from Indiana from New York, it was really weird because like you get in the suburbs of a city, like even here in Columbus, like in Dublin, like I'll be going place, I'll be driving, I'll be like, do they not even have sidewalks here? Like, where people walk?
That is really true. Yeah. There's a lot of highways.
Yes.
Yeah, it's not a walkable area.
So that was like one thing that I was like, okay, that was a little weird, but I mean, basketball country, Larry Bird land, you know, Terre Haute was, I mean, we had our auntie and my couple of my uncles' dads, so it was my grandfather, but him and my grandmother weren't married anymore.
And they were here, they were in Indiana.
So that's who we moved in with.
Okay.
And that's around the time I really started playing basketball serious. But that was because my mom was working 2 jobs, you know, to provide for me and my brother. So I spent a lot of time at the Boys and Girls Club and not really thinking about it. It was just going and playing basketball every day. I didn't think I was good, but it was something to do to pass the time. And after a while, I got pretty decent at it.
It also helped that you eventually became very tall. But I like, you know, for even just for that experience, like watching your parents go through a divorce. I mean, there's a lot of people that can understand that. I mean, 50% of marriages end up in a divorce, so the percentages aren't good. So that must have been really tough. And you were old enough at, 8, 9 years old to understand what was going on. It's not like you were 2 years old. And then to have to move to a brand new place. And even though it's just like a minor detail, that the fact that there aren't any sidewalks, like it's just a different environment, right? So maybe it took away the community aspect where you in New York were so used to going over to your cousin's house and stopping through or whatever. And then you go to a different environment and all of a sudden you're just like, maybe there's not as big of a community, or you're not as connected. And
yeah, I mean, you're just not as connected to that community at first. But then with the divorce, you know, it kind of, being away, kind of set the boundaries, I guess. Because, you know, before we moved, it was like, you know, arguments, you know, you kind of notice things like, all right, this is a little different. But now, you know, mom's here, dad's here. We know that there's a hard line. So, I mean, we kind of understood in that way. But at that time, I started playing on the AAU team.
in
Terre Haute, I want to say, fifth grade.
Wow, that's so young.
Yeah.
Do you think that, looking back at things, and I moved I was born in Missouri, so, you know, I grew up in the Midwest, and it's so different. And I moved to Tampa, Florida to attend a tennis academy. So that's like, it was such a huge shock for me. Like, moving cities at a young age, like, is earth shattering. Like, that impacts you forever, because I went from being the kid in town, everybody knew, tennis player, really good tennis player. And all of a sudden I went to a public school and I was like the new kid getting picked on. And I went from a predominantly white, very like safe neighborhood in Missouri, Mexico, Missouri. Shout out Mexico, Missouri, Ty Lou. You know, I got to give my show me state a shout out. But then I went to a public school, and it was like super diverse and way more rough and tough. But the reason why I highlight that is because, you know, just talking about your experience of, you know, you have things going on with your family, and then you're like the new kid on the block. And for me, like, was trying to find something to hold on to, because all this unfamiliarity is like popping up in your life. And so for me, pouring myself into sport, that became my family. That became my stability and something to hold on. It was like my teddy bear. I don't know what else to call it. It was like my first love, my relationship. And hearing about your experience, I wonder how did basketball, because of everything that was going on around that time, did that kind of become your family, your best friend in a way? I mean,
at the time, I don't think I really thought about it that way. I just looked at it as it was something to do. I just looked at basketball like, you know, I mean, you got all this free time. You don't really know a lot of people. I mean, this is just a sport to have fun, get out a lot of energy. But I never really thought about it. But now looking back at it, I kind of engulfed myself in basketball around that time. Like, I played in Buffalo just for fun. And then when I got to Indiana, which is the basketball state, that was all I wanted to do. And it was cartoons, school, basketball, you know. So, yeah, I mean, I guess with that move, it kind of was like, all right, all these thoughts, I guess, that a young child has, for me, it was basketball. So I was just there. You know, I didn't have time to think about, you know, my parents or, you know, being in a new city. You know, it was just like, I know this is familiar. I can do this as much as I want to, and it's not going to be changing. I guess.
Yeah, I mean, of course, you know, and I highlight that because, especially as kids will develop amazing behaviors or coping mechanisms to deal with life, because life can get tough, right? And we won't really know why we do things until we're an adult.
Yeah.
You know, and I ask a lot of athletes these questions, because then it starts to peel back the layers of like, right, so this is why football or tennis or basketball became so important in my life, because, you know, it may or may not have related to the family and the divorce and the move, but it might play into the formula of it, you know? I don't know.
It definitely did for me, because the AAU team I started playing for, like, guys on that team are still family to me to this day. I mean, my best friend I met on that team, and I mean, he passed away while we were in college, but he was my best friend. I mean, I could still say to this day, he was the only person that I would talk to every day.
Who was that?
His name's Travis Smith. I'll wear his little forever in our hearts. Wow. Travis J. Smith. That's cool. My best friend. And his parents, his dad was a basketball coach. His mom is like my mom still to this, like they're, and his younger sister, like they're my family still to this day. And a couple of guys, you know, I'm really close with on that team that I still talk to. And yeah, I mean, they became my family, you know, away from home. You know, it was my mom and my brother, but I look forward to going to basketball practice. I look forward to going on AAU trips with them because they became my brothers and my family as well.
Well, I mean, I think it makes sense then why, at least at the very early stages, basketball became so important to you is because that meant family, especially if you had moved and also your mom. So your mom was working a couple jobs trying to support that. That must have been really hard for her, especially becoming a single mother. Now that I am a mother, I'm like, I have no idea how single mothers do it. I don't, it's so hard. It takes a village to raise a kid. So props to her and shout out to all the single mothers out there.
Definitely shout out to all the single moms.
Yeah. So, and then, so when did you start basketball? What are your first memories?
So I remember playing in a little summer league in third grade.
In Indiana?
In Buffalo.
Oh, in Buffalo.
Then at the end of that summer, we moved to Indiana. Okay. And then I started playing on the AAU team, playing at the Boys and Girls Club, and played with the AAU team. And that's when it started, fourth grade. And I don't think it's ever stopped my love for the game. I mean, I played in the Big 3 League, the Ice Cube Big 3 League this summer. And so, I mean, when I can play, I go out there and play.
Yeah. I mean, so it sounds like you were very good very early because if you went, no?
No, I was not. I started playing in first grade. I hit my first basket for the wrong team.
I love that. That's awesome.
Happened.
That sounds like something I would do.
I mean, I got the ball and I just shot it, and they were like, "There's a reason you got the ball. They're pressing and you're open." I was like, "Oh, my bad. I'm never passing the ball anyways." And I don't think I was actually good till like 8th grade.
Really?
Maybe 9th.
But you were very tall.
So, I was big.
Right.
Yes.
So in 5th grade, were you 5'10"?
5th grade was about 5'10", and then at the end of 6th grade, I was 6'5", 6'6".
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
And then 7th grade, 6'7", 8th grade, 6'8", 9th grade, 6'10", then 6'11", and sophomore year, I was basically this height.
What was it like going through such a major growth spurt and being so tall at such a young age? And I think what's unique about, I was really thinking about this and having conversations with a lot of my friends in basketball, outside of it. And the one thing that I've learned about NBA players particularly is that you guys are so tall that you literally physically stand out in the crowd. And while people that can't relate to that or fans may look at that as really cool and glamorous because you get to be bigger than everybody else, but it's also hard because you can't hide either.
Yes, that's one of the things that I've struggled with is just trying to be a guy that did not want all the attention. But when you're 7 feet tall, you walk into a room or anywhere, everybody can see you. So I used to tell people, you know, how would you feel if everybody can see you, spot you out, and then you're in a room where you know nobody? And, you know, that's kind of tough because I walk in a room and everybody, Greg on this. But I don't know that person. I've never met that person before in my life, and everybody can see me. So a lot of times, I don't know, I kind of hunch over, kind of put my shoulders down. Was always my way of kind of hiding, get into a corner and just kind of stay out the way. But, you know, I've kind of taken to a point where now where I'm like, you got to own this. I mean, it's not going to change. I mean, unless something horrific happens to your legs or your back, you're not going to get shorter. So you just, just try to be as comfortable in your own skin as possible, because it's not going to change. And that's the one thing I want to get by to a lot of people is, I'm walking in my shoes, so there's no reason to be embarrassed about everything I've been through, or who I am. I'm this big. But, when you're 7 feet tall, airplanes need to start giving you just automatic first class bulkhead seats, because that is terrible. Like, I remember sometimes going in and they'll look at me and be like, yeah, you got this regular seat. And I'm like, look up. Like, I can't fit. I physically can't fit, from my hip to the bottom of my knee. Like, that space in between the seats is not that long. So.
That is so true for somebody who is very vertically challenged at 5'2". I can fit into any space. So that I don't, and even though most people would know me as very outgoing and warm and loud sometimes, but I am an introvert at times. I really do. So like after this interview and if we go out to lunch and like see people, like around 5 p.m., I will hit a wall.
Really?
And I have to be by myself.
Really?
Yeah. Yes. And I want to point that out, because I think we live in a society that rewards people for being loud and opinion, especially today's political climate, like loud and opinionated and strong and all that stuff. But I don't think strength has to be loud. I think strength can be quiet. But I think that if I were really tall and in your shoes, I think it would have been tough for me, because I like to hide sometimes. Yeah. But going back to your middle school period, looking back, how did you adjust to your physical changes, physically or mentally?
Well, mentally, I just kind of stayed with basketball, stayed with my sport. That kind of molded me to be the person that I was, not really knowing how to handle being the biggest guy at a young age. I'm the biggest guy in the school.
Yeah.
And I'm 6th grade,
Did kids say anything?
Some. Younger girls were pretty mean to me.
The girls were?
Oh, yeah.
I thought that would be an asset, being a tall, strong, strapping young lad in middle school, because like the last thing guys don't. Is that what
people thinking about at 6th grade?
I mean, in my 6th grade in Tampa, Florida, yeah.
Everybody's making fun of you in 6th grade.
Yes, that is true. And I found that out when I moved over to Florida. Everybody makes fun of everybody.
Yes.
Kids can be really mean.
Yes. So when you're that guy who doesn't know how to riff-raff back or joke, because I was never the guy to talk about anybody. I just always had fun. Whatever somebody else had going on or something bad that happened to them, I wasn't going to put it on blast or anything like that. I just tried to, maybe they need some help. I was always that nice kid. But I don't know, 6th grade was rough for me. And, so I tried to even hide even more, because I say this my grandfather told me this. When you're big, one thing you can't do is look all bad with your clothes and you can't smell. You're already big, so you can't smell and dress super terribly.
Your grandfather, is he tall too? Or
yeah,
he is
about 6'5".
Oh, wow.
So, yeah,
so he understands.
He understood, and I try to tell people that all the time. Look, man, you already big. You can't be funky and out here dressing all terrible. I understand it's tough on us.
That's big man wisdom right there.
It really is. I mean, the clothes part it's kind of hard, because it's kind of hard to find clothes that just fit us. But you can make sure you don't smell. Yes.
Because now you just like a stinky big man.
Yes. Yes.
That must have been, I think that's interesting to hear your side of it, because those are like the little details that are, at least in my eyes, are important, because it offers people a different perspective on your journey. Because I think most people see you as this big, strong, athletic basketball player, the next Bill Russell, whatever you want to call it. But before all that, began, you were just a kid who wanted to be loved like everybody else and just wanted to have fun in basketball. Mm-hmm. But your physical stature, I was having this conversation yesterday, but like over time, as I've been able to talk to athletes, I start to place them in different groups so I understand their processes. And initially, like in terms of how an athlete begins sport, I always ask the question to the athlete, did you look for this sport? Did you gravitate towards it? Or did it find you? If that makes sense. Because, and I've brought this up in other interviews, the reason why that became important to me and I related to that was I was reading Andre Agassi's book, Open, and he talks about how he kind of fell into tennis. He grew to love it, but tennis found him. And that was my journey. I didn't necessarily seek tennis. It found me because I just happened to be like pretty good at it. Mm-hmm. And once I started, I grew to love it, but I also grew to love the things that it offered me, which over time, it can kind of backfire. So they have like the difference between intrinsic value and extrinsic value. You've heard of those, yes. Right? So intrinsic value are things that are innate and you truly love the sport, you have fun with it, whatever. The extrinsic stuff is where things start to like really backfire for athletes, right?
The places you can go.
Exactly. And so like every athlete, especially as you get to the elite level, every athlete falls into that. Like who wouldn't love the attention and recognition and you and I were talking about the free gear. Like who wouldn't like who wouldn't love all that attention and the money and the fame and the recognition and all that stuff. So I guess within that context, can you figure out if you gravitated towards basketball or in some ways it found you?
And looking at that, yes.
So because you think basketball found you?
Yes, because it was just something that I did. Like basketball we were at the Boys and Girls Club anyways, and basketball is just one of those sports where you just get a basket and the ball and you can do it by yourself. You don't need everybody there. So, just shooting ball, just being tall, just wasting time. And then my best friend's dad saw me and was like, he's pretty tall. Let's try to get him on our kids' AAU team, I wasn't good, but I always went to practice. I enjoyed going to practice to be around these new friends that I have, I was never thinking, oh, you love this game of basketball, so you're doing it for this. It was like, no, I got friends. Now I went on AAU trips. I had my first flight on an AAU trip, to Dallas. I was scared. He'll tell the story that I grabbed him so tight when we first took off. And so now I'm going to all these places. I'm meeting a bunch of people, but I'm also practicing all the time, and I'm not really thinking about, I'm practicing to get better. It's just I'm on this team now. So I just keep on playing. And it wasn't until I want to say the summer after 7th grade when one of my friends was like, hey, you ever tried dunking? And I was like, no, but I'm freaking 6'7", so
that's
it's like,
awesome.
So I did, and I remember that I finally got it down, and then 8th grade, then later on that summer, I finally got a dunk in the game, and I don't know what that dunk did, but that dunk was like, wait, this whole crowd just went crazy off of this one dunk? I can do that all the time. So the next thing I know, that's all I wanted to do. I'm taking the spirit out of the opponent every time I dunk the ball. The crowd's going crazy. I'm getting energized. The team's getting energized. And then it just went from there. And then that's really when I was like, hold on, I can be really good at this. I can start honing my skills. And then a lot of stuff started coming in high school, all these awards, still traveling, going to Vegas for the first time, college recruitment, All-American awards that I'm not even thinking about. I'm just playing basketball and having a good time competing and enjoying the time with my friends and my family.
It's interesting to hear your experience because I think internally everything is it's a gradual and linear progression upward. And see if I can explain this, how I'm processing everything. But it, like underneath the surface, you were just doing it because you loved basketball and it was something to do. And maybe it was a passion, but it wasn't like your life purpose or love, right?
It definitely wasn't. Not at that time.
You just, let's just say you liked it. Like it's okay to, you know, I feel like there's a lot of athletes that I've found who obviously love the sport, but then there's a lot of them that reach the elite levels, and it's hard to say like I just like my sport, you know, because we live in a society where it's I don't know, it's just very intense, and there's a lot of expectations too, and fans, and you put all these expectations on your shoulders, and like if somebody came out and like if you came out and were like, you know what, like I like basketball, I don't love it, you would have gotten so much criticism and hate. So that's just kind of like bubbling beneath the surface. But then around you, I feel as though your career, the events around you were so quick up and then so quick down.
I was just going to say that.
Right?
I mean, I look at it as that, like my life story, it was built up, and from a young age, everything was good. Everything was going so well. And I want to say my first big blow was in college. It was losing my best friend to a car accident. His name was Travis Smith. He got in the car. He went to Ball State. He was a golfer.
Really?
Oh yeah, we was the first robbing big. You know, he's a
no way
5'11" white kid, can shoot the ball, play golf, and I'm this 7 foot 6'11" big tall black man. We were best friends.
I love me some Robin Big.
I know, that was my favorite show. It was just me and him.
That's really cool, and that's really cute. I think that says a lot about you and your openness to things and people too.
I mean, everybody's a good person deep down. You know, I look at life like, you know, everybody is a person. You give everybody their respect until they give you a reason not to. You know, that's just how I would want to be treated. If you first meet me, I want you to treat me with respect, as I'm going to do the same to you. You know, if it doesn't work out, then we can go our separate ways. But
where does that come from? Because not a lot of people are like that, and you do come off so, which is why I wanted maybe selfishly to sit down with you, because you just genuinely are a very nice and warm person. I wish that kindness would be rewarded more in today's society, but because I'm the same way, but I've learned that sometimes people can take advantage of that, and I think that's a part of your story as well, because you are so kind. And if you automatically trust or respect someone initially, like I think that's awesome. But that could also be the gateway towards a lot of hurt.
I mean, it kinda. I mean, I don't look at it that way, you know. I just kind of look at it like, this is just me. Like, I'm going to respect everybody. Everybody's a person. Everybody deserves some type of respect in this life. I mean, we're all here. We want to be happy. We want to enjoy time with our families. And we just want to live a good life. So that all stems from, are you going to respect? Are you going to put that same type of energy, that same type of kindness out in the world? And so that's what I want to do. And like you said, you know, it should be rewarded a little bit more. But, you know, if it's not, and you know, the loud anger or just aggressive, they kind of get up a little bit more in life. But that's not what I want to see. I want to see positivity. I want to see kindness. So that's the person that I'm going to be.
I agree with you. I do think kindness wins in the end, though. So going back to your high school career, so meanwhile, you fall into basketball.
Get pretty good at it, I guess.
And you get really good at it, not pretty good.
Mike Conley definitely helped. Just throwing that out there. When I look back at life, it was like, Greg, you were pretty good in high school. I was like, I had a pretty damn good point guard as well. He made me look really good.
So he helped you look really good.
Yes, he did.
But you did really start to blow up at the high school level. And then you talk about all these awards. You were the Gatorade Player of the Year. Was it twice, 2 years in a row? You were the Indiana Mr. Basketball. You took your high school to 3 straight championships, right? And I, as I was reading up on your story, and I think about the move from New York to Indiana, and I couldn't help but think how that blew up basketball as a part of your life, because I think you would have been big no matter what, physically and metaphorically speaking. But the fact that you went to Indiana, where, the
basketball is
it's like
number
everything.
one.
That Indiana Mr. Basketball is an award that's been around for since I think 1939. So it just shows. Do you think that moving to Indiana played a role in your bigness? History?
I think so, because basketball is a part of my history and a part of me. And Indiana just magnified that. And that move, I think, kind of put my mind on that and down that path. I think in New York, I probably would have got there eventually. But I think the people who I was around, the teaching, the coaching I got in basketball from Indiana compared to what I probably would have got in New York was just different. And it put me on this path where it just blew up. Being, paired with Mike Conley Jr., having his dad as our coach, seeing the Olympic just preparation and how he handled, losses, wins. I say one of the best advice I've got at a childhood was from Mike Conley Sr. It was, don't get too high up on the wins and don't get too low on the losses. Just try to stay even keel with all of it. And I think that's a great way to handle a lot of successes and a lot of losses in your life, because, you won't let that affect you. And I wouldn't have got a lot of that stuff if I wasn't in Indiana. And basketball-wise, like I just said, it really did just blow up. But it took me a while to get there. But I think that coaching and the people that I was around and that path that I was on in Indiana made it that way. And I think it would have been a lot different. I could have still got to that point in New York, but it didn't happen that way. So
yeah, it did seem like, I know it was a gradual process, but it seems like it happened so quickly.
Yeah.
And so you're a senior. Actually, no, you declared to Ohio State at your junior. You were a junior.
Year, yeah.
Your junior year. So what was the transition from high school to college like for you?
It was pretty cool. It wasn't bad. Knowing
that was such a you have such a big smile, but then there's more behind that answer.
Well, first, Coach Mata, just his energy and this university, the football game we went to, I want to say it was Ohio State, Texas.
Oh.
So, yeah, it was one of the greatest football games ever. And then Coach Mata, Daquan Cook already being committed to come here. Matthew Terwilliger, who I throw out because, he was the guy who I was hanging with on my visit that, I was like, okay, he's pretty cool. He basically sold me to come here.
Really?
Yeah, and we loved everything about Columbus, and it was a 2.5-hour drive. I used to say, my mom can get here if she needed to, but it's just far enough that she's just not going to drive here every day.
She's close, but not too close.
Yes. So that worked. We were in the Midwest. We were at a football school, so, if we didn't perform up to par basketball-wise, football's always going to be number one anyways. So we were okay.
I love it how you go there and you get all this attention, but you had that in the back of your mind. You're like, well, it's not too much attention. It's a lot of attention, but not too much attention.
It's not too crazy.
Yeah.
And just that transition. Coach Mata, Coach Richardson, Coach Majors, all those assistant coaches, they were so good. And I think that team was meant for each other because you know we felt comfortable here. We enjoyed it. I enjoyed walking to class in the rain, snow, like. This university,
wow,
oh my gosh, I really loved being a college student staying on campus that year. I mean, it could help that I was big man on campus, I guess to say.
You were well loved.
I was just a little bit. Just a little bit.
Well, it's you know, and you only spent, even though you live here now and you came back, but you only spent 1 year here at Ohio State, and looking at the events, at least on paper, one might think, because transitioning to college for a lot of student athletes can be really tough. It was tough on me. It's a huge responsibility between like classes and class load and the academic rigor, and then also being having a full-time job and being a student athlete. And you had surgery right before you came, wrist surgery, right? But when I get the sense that if out of anything that I'm going to talk to you about, like Ohio State, your face just lights up. Yeah. You get so happy. And it seems as though is that a period where you had a lot of good memories?
I definitely have a lot of good memories here. It was one of those things when I think about it, it's a tough transition period for everybody. But when I was here, I felt comfortable. And I think that's why I still live here. Just the comfort level that Columbus gave me. Like, it always felt like home from the first time we stepped foot in our dorms. You know, I'm thinking we're going to be in the little dorms, like sharing, you know, a room and bathroom with everybody on the floor. But then, you know, we were able to get in the graduate dorms. And we each had our own bedroom, and me and Mike shared a bathroom. Daquan and Dave shared a bathroom. We all shared a living room and the kitchen, you know. So to have that living situation and everything, I told you I like a list. So knowing that I have to be here, and I have this class, and I have this tutor, and we have practice scheduled for this time, and then I got tutor after this. Like, I had my whole day planned out, so it wasn't nothing I had to think about or improvise. It was just like, you know where you got to go, be there, you know. So I was always
you really
home.
love that structure.
I do.
And you thrive in that.
Yeah.
So you spend a year here at Ohio State, and even though you're injured, you guys come back. You have a great season, right? You get to the NCAA championship game.
Yes, that wasn't the best feeling afterwards.
But you look back and you have great memories. And then compare it to your experience at the NBA, which is, you know, I've learned more about that transition talking to other NBA players and it's unique and different than football, because football, there's so many positions. You have 53 guys on a roster. Basketball is different, where it's a smaller team, 5 positions, so there's less spots. And it's tough because you go from college, a very home, comfortable environment. Everyone's focused on winning and being a team. And from what I've heard, going to the professional level and maybe at the NBA level, now you got people, like, now it's about money, people fighting for their lives, people fighting for their livelihood and their families. And then you also might have the dynamic of veterans who may or may not be in a mentoring role, you know, because, so I've heard about that political aspect. But how did your NBA just transition compare to your college one?
Well, I go to the draft. So spent about 3-4 days in New York. My whole entire family's out there in New York City. Flew them all out, put them up in hotels, and I basically had no time with my family. I was doing media things, media training. I was doing events, which come helping kids, camps, all this stuff around the NBA. And around to build the brand that I want, that I never even had time to really just spend the afternoon with, you know, my cousins who I have, you know, I talk about my best cousin, my favorite cousin who's now in the Air Force, who, you know, is in New York, but, you know, I only got to see him in passing and talk for a little bit with my uncles and all my aunties. And then draft night comes, and, you know, I was trying to do so much for everybody else that a story that I haven't told most people was when you're sitting at that table, they come and they're like, for time, you can hug the person to your left, hug the person to your right, which is usually your mom and your dad.
Yeah.
I had my grandmother and my brother over there and other people at the table, and I always regret that I didn't just go around that table and even, hug everybody at that table, because it was a great moment. You got to enjoy that. But you think about it, that's the start of me, trying to do all this stuff for everybody else, And then I go up and I shake David Stern's hand, and I'm the first one to go back do interviews. I'm the last one to leave that arena, know. And then as soon as I get back, I'm thinking finally I get to go out, party, hang out. I'm in New York City for the first time. All my family's here. We're going to enjoy this moment. And they're like, you got an hour to pack. You're on a private plane to Portland.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, I'm getting I got all these suits. I got all these clothes here and all this stuff that I've gotten in New York. And I just have to leave. Most of it. They couldn't even
give you, a morning with your family or a day?
No, because when I landed in Portland that morning, you think I'm not even dressed. I'm in jeans, a T-shirt, and one of those little stringly line backpacks. Yeah. And they have a freaking parade in downtown Portland.
Oh.
So I'm coming to no time to do anything, no time with my family, straight to Portland, barely getting any sleep, I'm in a parade of, it seems like the whole city. And I'm not going to say I was the savior, but that's kind of the feeling you get,
You were looked to be one.
And I'm 19 years old, and I don't know how to handle this. Going to Ohio State was different. Being in high school, winning 3 state championships, that was cool and all. But this is big time. Now the money's involved. Now this is what people are talking about on ESPN all day. That pressure's there. And I'm looking at it I'm 19. I don't know how to handle any of this stuff, I'm just coming from, where I had my whole entire day planned for me.
Yeah.
So now it's you got this type of money, you got this type of expectations, this little bit of freedom, this massive celebrity, all those added up, what's really going to happen?
Yeah, because college is definitely different, because while you might be the guy on campus, there is a shared goal, and everybody walks around and looks at the basketball team as kings on campus, or the football team. But when you are the number 1 overall pick, it's just you.
At that professional level, yes. So, no matter what happens here, when I think about when we won the national championship of football, you could look at it and be like, no, Cardell, Zeke, these guys who played a big part of it. But no, Ohio State won the first national championship of the playoffs, And college is always going to come back to that school, In the league, you think about when Bron and them won for Cleveland. Kyrie won the NBA championship. He hit the big shot. LeBron bought the championship back to Cleveland. That's the storyline you're hearing. You're not hearing.
It's more about the individual players.
It feels a lot more about the individual than it does in college.
Yeah, I think it is. Especially today. And there's a business model and commercialization behind that. My husband is in media and advertising and brand development, and there's a lot of the stuff that he does sheds light and informs me about what is going on behind the business of sport. And because of the sneaker culture, because of NBA became just kind of being trendy these days. So fans will look to just an athlete rather than the whole team. And I think that definitely plays into it. And so you have all this attention, and I think the one thing that a lot of people don't realize is that becoming a professional athlete, especially at the level that you were and being so famous and put on a pedestal, is that there's a huge responsibility and obligation that comes with being a professional athlete. So rather than being able to spend time with your family, now you've got interviews, you've got meetings, you've got all this other stuff.
You're traveling a lot.
Right.
It's just a lot that comes with that amount of money you're getting paid. that a lot of amount of pressure. You have some expectations that you got to take care of. And I mean, it's not bad because you definitely get compensated pretty well for it. And, it's just a kind of the give and take, with that amount of money that you can take care of your whole entire family and your family's family for years to come. You're going to have to, miss a couple of birthdays. You're going to be on the road for some holidays. A lot of your time is going to be taken away from the family or something that might be a little bit more important to you for, this basketball and for that compensation that you get.
And now, as you go to the NBA, now just your physical health becomes a part of the equation and everything. And before you even, so you go to Ohio State and you have surgery right before it, and now you go to the NBA and you have surgery before your rookie season. At what point where is your physical health at this point?
So it was about 2 months into it, into the summer after I got drafted, I want to say, if that, before I was basically having a microfracture surgery. I went in there thinking that it was, just something minor, and then that they were going to go in and fix whatever, not thinking that it was going to be a major, I woke up to like, yeah, you're out for a year. And I'm like, wait, I thought if it was like this, and this, we're going to take care of it, not thinking that I didn't even know the possibility of me being out a whole year was something even on the table.
Wow. Wait, did they prep you beforehand?
So
did they think it was something else?
So they did. But my understanding at that time was, it's going to be something like not a year, It
might be several months.
Yeah, it might be a couple of months, just you'll play, but a whole year sitting out, like that's not something that was technically in my head from that surgery. It was, go get cleaned up. We're gonna go get this fixed, and either you can be coming back in a week or two, or it might take a few months. But the microfracture that I had, it just made more sense to be out for the whole entire year. But
Wow.
Waking up to that news was kind of like, wait, hold on, like all this expectation, that I put on myself, and then that's out there. It's tough to deal with at that moment.
I really hope you enjoyed this first episode with Greg Oden. Stay tuned for part 2 next week. We'll talk about his 7 surgeries, how he handled being labeled a bust, and also how his physical and emotional pain eventually morphed into substance abuse. If you have any thoughts or comments, feel free to hit me up at Prim_Siripipat on Twitter and Instagram. The Next Chapter with Prim Siripipat is a production of iHeartRadio. For more podcasts from iHeartRadio, visit the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.